What up? We are back. We are here to talk review of UFC 309. We are going to talk college football and any other sports talk that comes on. With me is D'Lo. I am Phil. Say what up, D'Lo.
What up?
Bennett is still recovering from his alcoholic bender yesterday. We hope to have him back on soon. But what'd you think about the fights last night, D'Lo?
Man, there were some good ones. Some things kind of turned out exactly how we expected it to be, man. After that 3-year layoff, Stipe kind of came out looking a little flat. He landed some decent shots on John Jones and shit like that, but John Jones looked a lot more crisp last night. He was landing fucking nasty kicks to Stipe's body. That's actually ultimately what put Stipe down, was a kick to the body. But John Jones just looked a lot more crisp, man. I mean, even when Stipe landed a couple shots, John Jones would quickly back out of the fire and gather himself up and then right back to it, man. He was just precision, man. He looked good last night.
Man,
And he did, to his credit, he didn't shut down the Aspinall fight last night. To his credit, he said, we know that we have a couple options, and we're going to go talk to Dana White, and we're going to see what works best for us and for the UFC, and we'll let you guys know soon. So, to his credit, he didn't shoot Aspinall down last night. So
I heard that he did. He did say after the fight, he said they were going to work out. They might give him what they want to see. So
yeah. Which is he referring to, Alex Pereira, or is he referring to Aspinall?
well,
I
it
don't
might be
know.
that deal. Hey, if you fight Aspinall first, we're going to give you Alex. You know what I'm saying? Like quickly, but John Jones doesn't fight quickly.
But what happens? What happens if he goes and loses to Aspinall, which I'm sure he believes that's not even a chance. But what happens if he goes and loses to Aspinall, and then he doesn't carry that same weight into a title fight with Pereira? Because the whole thing with Pereira is to basically be a simultaneous belt holder. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What
So,
about Chandler and Oliveira last night? With Oliveira picking up the win, we got a little video, man. If you want to watch, we got the post fight. We got Chandler calling out who he wants to fight next. Let's listen to it real quick.
yeah.
First of all, that fifth round was one of the greatest rounds I've ever seen in my life. For you to have lost those first 4 rounds and just throw caution to the wind in that fifth and final round.
Joe, all I know how to do is throw American badass caution to the wind. Madison Square Garden, are you not entertained? Hey, I had a bunch of call-outs. I was supposed to show up tonight, do my job, and win the fight. Forget calling out Islam. Charles is doing that next. Maybe Max Holloway for the BMF belt. Or Conor McGregor, if you can ever get your house back in order, while us real professionals have been keeping the octagon warm, we're wondering where you've been, Conor. Come back and beat me, if you can.
What do you think about that? Does he have the right to call out? He just lost. Should he be calling out anybody after that?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I don't know that he has the grounds to call out anyone right now, because he's lost a couple recently, and so it's like, where do you get off calling out anybody? You need to kind of work your way back up the ranks. But at the same time, goddamn, dude, that dude's a dog, man. I mean, he got his ass beat 4 solid rounds last night, dude. Oliveira dominated him on the ground. He dominated him. Chandler was trying to give him a run for it on the feet, but Oliveira looked more precise. His punches looked more crisp, and were hitting their location better. Like, it looked like Chandler was just throwing more wild punches, just trying to connect and things like that. And Oliveira just looked a lot more crisp and things like that. And like you said, man, where does he get calling anybody out? Now the McGregor thing, I kind of get because they did the Ultimate Fighter. They were supposed to fight. McGregor's just got, his outside of the octagon life is just wild and crazy. So it's just like if McGregor can,
they were pushing.
If McGregor can ever lock back in, what's that?
They were McGregor was pushing to have this fight be the December pay-per-view. I seen Conor; he was really pushing for that, and they came back and said no. This fight had been made.
Well, I think that Chandler finally said, "I'm done with this shit, man." He said, he, like you said, he lost what two prime years of his career waiting for McGregor, dude. Like, I mean, that's you can't do that shit, man. And I understand that when you fight McGregor, that it gives you life-changing money and shit like that. But what happens when the fight falls through like it has with Chandler and then he's sitting with no paycheck at all? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I figure at this stage in the game, though, if you're trying to fight McGregor, then you're not worried about winning a title. You're not worried about moving up in the rankings. You're just looking for the money fight, and that you're pretty much admitting that your career's on the come down and you're about finished. So,
well, he's got to know. He's got to know that he's probably in the lower half of probably the top 15 in the the lightweight division. Is that what he is, lightweight or welterweight? I'm not sure. Lightweight. So he's probably
him and Conor was.
Yeah, I would say Michael Chandler is probably in the lower half of the top 15 of the welterweight division. So he's probably 13, 14, 15, somewhere around that range.
Before that loss last night, he was 8th in the rankings. Oliveira was number 1.
Yeah. And like I said, he's probably sitting around 12th to 15th now. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what, that does intrigue me. What does intrigue me is him and Max Holloway, the way they bang inside the octagon. Those two guys just banging in there, just banging the shit out of each other. That intrigues me probably more than the Conor McGregor matchup. I don't.
Who was it that?
What? Go ahead.
Who was it that Max just lost to? Or did he end up beating that dude? No, he lost to him. I think that Vasily.
It's champion. It's a champion. The featherweight. Oh man, why is it? It's Tuporia.
Yep. Yeah. So, I guess that would make sense because Max is coming off a loss. Chandler's coming off a couple losses. I understand what he wants to do, man. He wants to continue to try to use these call-outs to keep his name in the bigger fights. But the problem is when you're not getting the benefit of the doubt at the end of the night, it's hard to continue to justify keeping you in these big fights. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, the dude's a dog. And you know that any fight that you stick him in, he's going to go out there and give you 150 fucking %. But it's just, when he's not there in the rankings and he hasn't really done anything recently to make you think like, yeah, this dude deserves a shot with one of the top contenders. It's just hard to justify it, man. It really is. He's not a Conor McGregor that can go pick his shots and, John Jones, guys like that. He's not that dude. So unless he's winning, it's like, how do you feel like you get off with the right to go out and call out guys and do like you got to fight who's next in line. You know what I mean? And right now you're free falling down the rankings. So we've got to try to find somebody that can match up with you to stop your free fall. You know what I mean? So,
well, Chandler moves to 23-9 in his career. I think he's now 3-4 in the UFC. Oliveira moves to 35-10. It's crazy that Oliveira has 10 losses, but he was not as good in his younger years as he's become now in his later years. He's really brought it on, especially since after winning the title, he dropped the title, but then came back. He's He's dominant. He's dominant on the ground like most Brazilians are. And
and Chandler said that Oliveira was going to call out Islam Makhachev last night. Do you think Chandler has a shot, or not Chandler? Oliveira has a shot against Islam? That Sambo style, that fucking, you know what I'm saying? That smothering.
I do really. I think that they could. I think that'd be a good matchup. I was trying to remember if they had fought or not. I thought he's the one that took the belt off Oliveira.
I think you might be right, and I think that he kind of ran through Oliveira in that fight. So
he did. There was something. I'm trying to pull it up now. Something about that fight. When they fought, he beat him in. I thought like in the first round or the second round. So let me see. I'm gonna try to pull that up, and I want to get. Let's see, because he's. Well, Charles lost his last fight. I forgot about that. Charles lost a fight earlier this year to Armand.
Charles Oliveira, what?
Charles had lost his last fight. He had fought earlier this year. He had taken on Armand.
Who was it again? My bad, bud.
Charles Oliveira. He had taken on Armand earlier this
who
year.
Did he lose to?
And had lost to him at UFC 300.
I got you. Okay.
And so when let's see, they did have a title fight, but it was canceled between Oliveira and Islam. But Islam did beat him back at UFC 280. He got a second round submission on him.
I see.
And so I want to say that's when he took the title belt off of him. That was back in 2022. So, but man, what'd you think about Bo Nickel last night? Getting the
I listened to the crowd boo him because Bo Nickel didn't attempt any takedowns last night. He did no groundwork. Basically, he neutralized the other guy's stand-up game. The guy would, throw a kick here and there, and then Bo Nickel would come in and hit him with a combination. And it was a back and forth chess match, and the crowd wasn't happy. They wanted to see the knockout, or they wanted to see Bo Nickel doing what he usually does, taking people to the ground and dominating them and shit like that. But Bo Nickel said, I'm very happy with this performance. He said, sometimes you got to weather the harder storms and just get through them rather than trying to think that you're going to come out and dominate these guys. He goes, every fight that I'm fighting is a step up in talent. And sometimes you just got to figure out how to get through that fight rather than thinking you're going to go in and just dominate it. And he said, I'm very happy with the performance. And he continues to stay undefeated. Yeah, man, he didn't look bad at all.
Do you think this is a case where like his wrestling is so dominant that they're trying to work on other aspects of his game and with the stand-up?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that last night was a thing that they focused on doing. I think they knew coming into this fight that guy wasn't going to attempt to try to take Bo Nickel down. They said that guy was good off of his back, but he's not very good trying to wrestle on the ground to get into position and stuff like that. He gets himself caught doing that shit. And so they knew that he wasn't going to probably go for the takedown attempts. And so I feel like they probably worked a lot in Bo's camp this time around and tried to work on his stand-up game, man, and tried to mix in another aspect of his game and shit like that. And that's where he brought that up, man. He said, he said the best fighters, man, the Max Holloways and things like that, there's been fights where they haven't went out there and absolutely dominated, but they got through the fight. And if you ask them, that they're happy with that and things like that. And he said, I feel like I'm getting better in every aspect of my game. And I'm working on it. Every fight, I'm working on different things and all this. So, I mean, he's talked about that he's trying to he's trying to become a complete fighter, and now whether or not it works out or whether or not he gets railroaded in the process, we'll see. I mean, like I said, there was a lot of hype surrounding that Sage Northcutt when he came in, and he was killing it for a couple fights, and then they lined him up against somebody that was legit, and Dana White in the post fight presser was like, I think I just ruined this kid, man. So.
Well, we had Mauricio Ruppy. He got the unanimous decision win over James Lyantop, the Canadian, or Peru.
Yep.
He's from Peru. We were talking in it. We knew that he was a heavy favorite in this. I didn't think it was going to go to unanimous decision, but it did. The guy was a minus 1,000 in betting odds. So, I mean, that's usually no safer than that. So he moved to 11-1. It looks like his career is just heading up for the Brazilian. We did have a fight that got canceled yesterday, last second, medical reasons, with Chris Weidman's fight. And it wasn't Chris Weidman that backed out at the last second. I don't remember. I was trying to.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sometimes with that being such a last second thing, either the other fighter had gotten injured in the 1 or 2 warm-ups leading up to the fight and the weigh-in and things like that, or he just had such a vicious weight cut that it sent him to the hospital and they had to cancel the fight. So,
well, we did have Jim Miller picking up a submission win in the first round over Damon Jackson. That was a little surprising, you could say the least. Jim Miller keeps winning, keeps fighting in the UFC, even at his age, man. And he's, like I said, he's already put up. He's had over 50 fights in the octagon. That's insane when you think about how little some people fight nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Maybe fight once a year.
Yeah, Jim Miller officially has the most fights in the UFC. I'm pretty sure. I seen it last night, and I mean the dude's just he's just there. He's anytime Dana White needs him to break in some new talent or just be a dependable guy on the card. Jim Miller's always there, and he just, and that's why, I'm sure he gets compensated fairly well for a mid card guy, but when you're kind of Mr. Dependable that can always just step up for a fight and always come in and do your job. I think Jim Miller's probably compensated pretty decent for a mid card guy. You know what I mean? So,
and
I mean, he's a name that people notice, but they still throw him in the middle of the card all the time. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. And what was your thoughts, man, on Tybura getting a TKO doctor stoppage against Dinez? Heavyweight battle yesterday. They were talking about how that dude was leaking all over the place. Did you?
Yeah, there was a lot of blood. I actually ended up missing that fight. I think that was right about the point that my son called and said that he was getting off of work, so I had to run and grab him. But when I came back, there was a lot of blood stain in the ring. I was like, "Damn, who had leaked everywhere?" So I didn't actually.
The guy was undefeated that he was taking on. He was 8-0, and we're talking about this young talent coming in.
Yeah, I actually picked that other guy against Tybura, but again, man, that experience wins out, man. Like, these young up and comers. Yeah, it's awesome to have a fucking 8-0, 9-0 record, but it's like, what kind of tomato cans have you fought coming up to that point? And now you're taking a huge step up with a guy like Tybura. And you see, first round, he was fucking had him leaking all over the place. You know what I mean? And so, just one of those things, man. You got to know what you're getting into, man. And you got to know as a fighter what's best for your career. I mean, I understand that it looks good to the boss when you don't turn down a fight and you're like, I'll fucking fight anybody and this and that. But if it doesn't make sense for you stylistically, or a guy that just out experiences you by 30 or 40 fights and shit like that. Why take that fight and derail your career, man? It sometimes that shit just doesn't make sense to me. I've seen it in boxing and in MMA. So,
well, also, and Mickey Gall
Mickey Gall?
losing,
Yeah.
dropping to 7-7. I think he may have had his last match in the UFC.
I
What do
was
you think?
honestly surprised when you told me that he was on the card. I was honestly surprised that he was still in the UFC. I knew that his career was pretty much what you said, about a 500 career. So I was honestly surprised that he was still on the active roster of the UFC.
Yeah, I agree, man. So UFC 309 is past us, man. You had some good fights, man. We had, John Jones dominating, I'm saying, once again. Stipe didn't
Yeah,
retire
and
last
it
night.
was a weekend for fighting, man. I mean, everybody was jacked up about that Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight. Of course, it ended up being a letdown, but um, and then we go right into Saturday, which was UFC 309. So it was a weekend of fighting for sure, man. Luckily, I feel like UFC 309 kind of redeemed the weekend, because if everybody would have left the weekend on the sour note that was Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, everybody probably would have went back to work Monday pretty pissed off. If that's all you got to talk about at the water cooler, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to a little college football talk, man. We're gonna.
Well, before you jump into the college football, man, I want you to bring up a video. God damn, I don't have the link for it. The dude's name is Jesse on Fire. I just want you to see this quick video where he talks about um, uh, his theory on what happened on the Tyson Paul fight. It just makes a lot more sense than, Tyson just took a payoff. Bennett says he took a Pokemon card that was worth $3 million to take the payoff or whatever. You know what I mean? Like shit like that. So I think this just makes a lot more sense. I think that his theory on it is basically that they made this a sanctioned fight to draw people in to think that Tyson was going to come in for real, but in the contract, it was basically written that it was a glorified exhibition. It was a glorified sparring match. Basically that they weren't going to try to throw any kind of knockout punches to the head. You could tell that Tyson was pulling punches. Like the one time I seen him go in and actually hit Jake Paul in the face, you could tell that he had an opening for another punch, and he backed off of it and things like that. So, and word on the street is that Tyson's contract was on a sliding scale. If he made it through the 8th round, he got his full pay. Anything that if the fight ended anytime before the end of the 8th round, Tyson would basically be penalized for knocking Jake Paul out or something like that. So
Okay, here I found it here. I'm going to pull it up, and let's check this out. Let me pull it up, man. All right, let's listen to this, man. There we go.
I'm going to do a live stream to cover the Tyson fight from last night. But let me tell you something. I'm in a hotel, okay? I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm going to tell you exactly what everybody saw last night, okay? Everybody has missed this. Everyone has missed this. I missed this. I missed this the entire lead up to the fight. I never even considered what was actually going to happen. It never even crossed my mind. I watched the fight last night. I missed it all throughout the entire fight. It didn't dawn on me until I slept on it and woke up this morning. And I was like, okay, I know literally exactly what happened without a doubt. And I'm going to show it to you guys right here in this stream. Okay. So first, let's go through the actual fight build up and the fight itself. Actually, let's go through the fight itself first. Okay. let's go through the fight itself. Okay, so here's exactly. Actually, okay, so I saw someone say, "Just say you were wrong." Let me tell you exactly what is. Everyone was wrong. Well, actually, no. It's not wrong. No one had their theory tested. Like, that's what actually happened last night. Is no one had their theories tested because everyone who was like, "Oh my God, Mike's gonna get killed." Here are the two things: Mike's gonna get killed in the ring. Okay, so like the two sides were me. I'm like, Tyson's gonna starch Jake in the first, and the other side was like, "Oh my God, man, I can't watch this shit. Tyson's he's gonna die in the ring." Okay, everyone was wrong. Like, the whole thing was a magic trick. Okay, and I'm going to show you exactly how I know. Okay, this is correct, except not exactly. It's not that it was staged exactly. I'm going to show you how. Like, let me just show you right now. Actually, okay. So we'll get into the details of the fight, but let me actually lay out what my hypothesis is right now. Okay.
I think he's getting ready to show the Roy Jones.
I'm going to take
interview.
you back to this interview right here. Okay.
You think what now?
I think he's getting ready to show the Roy Jones interview where Roy Jones explains the terms of their contract that going into that fight and how everything that played out in the Jake Paul fight looks like it was pretty much exactly the same thing.
All right, let's go.
This happened in April of, let's see. So it's 6 months ago. Okay. So this interview happens. Watch this sequence right here when they're talking about Roy Jones Jr. when he fought against Tyson, and just watch this real quick.
You know, so you fought Mike Tyson, right? You've been with Mike. Well, you didn't fight him.
Let me just I'll just tell you. I'm not going to make you guys watch this without saying what it was. This was an exhibition last night. This was not a real fight. This was an exhibition. That's what actually happened. Okay. This was an exhibition. And what happened before I even show you all this, okay, that interview happened, what I was about to show you, and Roy Jones Jr. said in that interview that him and Tyson were not allowed to punch each other hard in the head. Okay, that's exactly what happens, and that's what I was going to show you in the interview. Is he's like, you know, the rules were we're not allowed to go hard to the head. We weren't allowed to try to knock each other out. There was no knockouts allowed. Literally within 5 days of that interview coming out, this happened. 5 days later, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson officially sanctioned a professional fight. Okay, because all the talk between when Roy Jones Jr. did that interview was like, "Oh, dude, this is bullshit. It's gonna be an exhibition. They're not even allowed to punch each other hard in the head. Like, that's lame." Okay, obviously serious problem to promote the fight, and then within a week, all of a sudden, it's a professional bout. So everybody's going full throttle. Okay, so does the fact that they sanction it a professional bout mean that the two guys who are going to get into the ring are like incapable of being like, yeah, okay, we're still going to do this like an exhibition? That was an exhibition last night. That's what that was. I couldn't fucking figure it out. Like, I could not figure it out. When I was watching it, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what are they doing? Like, what is Tyson fucking doing? What is he doing? Because he was in position to fucking bomb on him. And then at the end, it's like it all lines up perfectly when you really think about it. It's like, okay, the first, like the way I remembered it, I was like, damn, I'm like, Tyson did like clip Jake really hard at the very beginning of the first round. I went back and watched it again. That was not a hard shot. That was a super short shot, definitely not intended to knock him out. There were no hard shots thrown by either guy the entire fight. Okay. And the reason why Jake, and like at the end, when they were like, man, Jake really took it easy on Mike. Like, you know, he saw that, you know, like he, yes, 100% he took it easy on him when he saw that Mike was tired. Absolutely, for sure he did. Because it's a fucking exhibition. You're not allowed to knock the other guy out. Okay. That's what that was. It was an exhibition last night.
So that's the.
So yeah,
go ahead.
I just wanted you to see that. And he ends up showing the Roy Jones thing, and that's it. You know, like, this is all theory shit because nobody really knows what the contract said. But at the same time, what we saw leading up to the fight was Mike Tyson, even the open workout that was 2 days before the fight, Mike was looking fast. He was looking vicious. He was getting in there, fucking getting it. Neither one of these guys were throwing hard the punches that we seen that were thrown in the open workouts and in the training camp leading up to the Jake Paul fight, there was not one of those punches thrown in this fight, dude. So anyway, that's his theory, and to me that made the most sense because I'm like, man, why would Mike Tyson risk his legacy to throw a fight to a YouTuber? But if it was already written in the contract, look, we're just going to go in and treat this like an exhibition. You know, sorry you got duped, man. Like we made our checks. You know, I don't think that hurts his legacy as much as going in and throwing a fight, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
The guy had, you know, I didn't know. At first, I was like, is this guy a conspiracy theorist? Not that there's anything wrong being a conspiracy theorist, but look like he's holed up in his hotel. He may or may not.
He's this particular guy. He like runs around with Dana White. He's pretty tied in the MMA community and shit like that. And some of his videos, you would think they're conspiracy theories, man. Especially the way he was covering the election going up to it, and how you know the deep state was trying to fucking take Trump out and shit. You would definitely think that he was a conspiracy theorist. But I'll tell you what, man, I watch him on a regular, and a lot of the shit that he says is legit. Like, you know, it may not seem that way at the moment, but within a couple days of him usually releasing a video, you start to put the pieces together and you're like, oh shit, dude, this dude, like, he actually does his homework. You know what I mean? So,
well, I mean, that's a plus side, man. Anybody that's going to do their homework when you're going to talk about something, I mean, that's hugely important.
Yeah, that's the problem that we have around here. You know, we come in unprepared all the time. So,
yeah. What I would like to talk, we're going to move on to some college football. And before we talk about yesterday's scores and stuff, I would like to talk about, hold on for 1 second. I'm bringing it up. Is that Indiana signed their coach to a new contract, which we had brought up. This is something that we had talked about. This was something that was important. They gave Kurt Signetti a new 8-year deal after Indiana starting 10-0. Originally, his deal was a 6-year, $27 million contract. They just gave him 8 years, $72 million. That's going to keep him at Indiana for the foreseeable future. What did you think about that, D'Lo?
well, I mean, for Indiana, it obviously is a huge move, man. I mean, he's now the highest paid employee in the state of Indiana. I mean, that's pretty significant. But the big thing is I think that they were trying to detour any of these other big schools. They were basically sending a message out to these big schools like in Alabama, who struggled a little bit this year, even a Georgia who's down this year. They were sending a message out to these schools at LSU, things like that, that if you're going to try to come after him, you're going to have to pay him $10+ million a year to even attempt to lure him away. And that's it. If he even accepts it, he may be happy here in Indiana. But here's the thing, where that's a very, very big move for Indiana, and it sends a message to the rest of the NCAA. Here's the thing. They just gave him this massive deal after 10 games, and we don't even know what his recruiting class is going to look like coming into next year. And so, I mean, the guy that that's really played well for him, Rourke, is a fifth or sixth year senior. So he's done after this year. Yeah,
but this guy played at Ohio University. Like, he wasn't on anybody's radar And this coach goes and obviously he knows who this kid is, says, hey, I'm going to IU. I want to bring you in as my starting quarterback. He does, and they're 10-0. I mean,
No,
his
I
ability
agree,
to-
man. Like
this is something
he's
that
done
we had said.
phenomenal. He's
It's something
done
we was worried about.
phenomenal, but it's like it's just, I mean, in such a small window of what you see, what he can do. Would you have been a little reluctant to hand him? I mean, he's on the other side of making close to $100 million. You know what I mean? With
But this is something that we
endorsements.
had said we were worried about this because of us being here with Indiana State losing their basketball coach, Josh Schertz, because
Yep.
Indiana State didn't want to pay him or couldn't, whatever the reason was, didn't want to pay him what he was being offered at St. Louis. They give him $2 million. He leaves here, and they had a great thing with a great starting five that was all going to come back this year. And we had hopes of the NCAA a deep tournament run, and it was all squashed. But not just him, but Indiana State just lost their baseball coach, who had just taken them to back-to-back NCAA baseball tournament, appearances. And we lost him.
Yeah.
I think Florida Atlantic or Florida, one of those Florida teams down there, because they paid him more money. So this was a thing.
Well,
where,
it's obvious. It's obvious to me that the IU is trying their damnedest to revamp their football program. They're trying to get it back into relevance.
They haven't
right.
So this is awesome to me. And this might have been a taste of being scared of losing him, because trust me, even after just one season, I know he just signed that deal, but college coaches can get out of college deals all the time. So they knew that other teams were going to be coming after him. And so they locked him up for 8 years. I mean,
Like I said, I feel like that it's it's one of those deals that they were, like I said, sending a message, letting it be known that if you're going to come after him, you're going to have to offer him at least $10 million a year to even entice him. And I think he's doing great things in Indiana, man. I have no knock on the fact that they signed him and things like that. That my biggest concern is we've just seen such a small sample size with him that what happens if next year it's a down year? I mean, are you okay with paying a guy $8-9 million a year and he's only winning 3 or 4 games for a couple of years in order to maybe bring in his own class and get them back into bowl eligibility when these guys are sophomores, juniors, things like that? Like it's just, what are you willing to accept as Indiana? Are you willing to accept a few down years and then bounce back and then, like things go up and down with him? Or are you expecting that he's going to keep you in bowl eligibility every year?
That kind of money, you're expecting it. 2 things. One, I'd like to bring up that he brought 11 guys with him from James Madison, where he coached at last year, where he took them 11-1, and that was moving up. They had moved up from the FCS, which is the old IAA. He had moved up from that.
Yeah.
Because James Madison was an FCS school, and then they moved up last year to the big leagues, and he took them 11-1. But he brought 11 of those kids with him, and 11 of those kids are starting at IU and have helped them go 10-0 so far. 2, with what you just said, last time they had a coach that did well was back during the pandemic. 2020 is when IU did really well. It was a shortened season. They only had 8 games. We went 6-2 that season, and they signed
If I remember, if this was the right season that I'm remembering, they were actually beating Ohio State going into the second half of their game.
Yes, it was huge. They gave that coach that big. It wasn't nothing like this, but they gave him a pretty good contract, and they fired him after last year because you know what I'm saying, he never put up any kind of numbers like he did that first year. But he didn't have much of a track
that's
record.
I guess
This
that's
is
just
that.
my biggest concern with Signetti is can you match the same success that you're having right now, dude? I mean, this is huge, bro. You're 10-0. Like this is not a program known for being a football powerhouse.
Yeah,
And right now you have people scared of IU. You know what I'm saying?
that's right. But here's what I think with your thing is you don't know what his recruiting class. College is kind of getting away from like recruiting classes are always going to be important, but they're like we
Okay,
could go and do that time.
so
We can what?
so I guess you're absolutely right with the recruiting thing, but so I guess I'll rephrase this. How much NIL money do you think that IU is giving Signetti? That's going to be what's huge
Here's what they said.
because
They're giving him. Go ahead.
to compete these days, you've got to have a nice NIL budget. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Well, what they said with that contract, they said that they are giving him a larger pool of money for assistants, for assistant coaches, and all that. So, like these assistant coaches are going to get paid pretty well, and yes, he's getting a large pool of money of NIL. But here's the thing: NIL, like based on that money that you get, it's based on like how did you do the season before. You know what I'm saying? So it's always, and they're going to have a lot of money going in to next year. But this, I don't know really what his coaching standards is, but he might be this coach that's like, I'm going to let these other schools go to these kids' houses and sign these kids. And when these kids do well, I'm going to swoop in and offer them more money and pull them into our program. But I mean, he has an eye for talent.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious, man. And if he is smart and has an eye for talent for plucking these kids out of like the FCS or Division III that are dominant and bringing them up, and these kids translating well and fucking doing good in Division I ball, that's amazing. That would be great because there is a whole crop of kids sitting there, not really getting fucked with in those lower schools. That I mean, you got JUCOs, you got FCSs, you got Division IIIs, you got all that shit, dude. That if you're focusing on bringing some of those kids up that already have that experience rather than going out and getting these high school kids and hoping they turn out, I think that could be a very smart play on his part.
I agree.
So,
Well, on to some college football scores, man. We'll start off with number one, Oregon, man. Oregon, probably the closest game I've seen them outside of the Ohio State game. They pulled out a 16-13 win over Wisconsin. They're one game away from clinching a spot, which I'm pretty sure they already have clinched it. They're 11-0. They got a spot waiting for them in the Big Ten championship game. The only other question is who's going to be on the other side, and we're going to find out the answer to that question next Saturday when Ohio State plays IU. Ohio State picked up a 31-7 win over Northwestern. It was expected. I mean, what a little shocking here is that they didn't put up more. I figured they'd put up a lot more points on Northwestern than what they did. But a 31-7 win heads them going home next week. IU coming in. It's a big game. It's a big game for us here in Indiana. It's a big game for Ohio. It's a big game for college football. So
is that game in Indiana or is it in
no,
Ohio?
it's in Ohio State. So everything is in Ohio State. So like they have everything to lose. We're just walking in. We're a team that normally by now nobody's talking about the football team. They're talking about the basketball team, and they have a legitimate chance to go in there and just shock the college football world, man. And I'm all for it. I'm excited about it. So Penn State held on 49-10 win over Purdue. They're ranked 4th in the polls. Texas, they won 20-10 over Arkansas. They are now set up to be in the SEC game right now, but they got to play their final game, Texas. They have to play against Texas A&M. And Texas A&M ranked right now the two best teams in the SEC are Texas and Texas A&M. So they play in the final game. So another team is probably going to step up and play the winner out of that. It could be Georgia.
Yep.
Here was the shocker. Kansas, a 17-13 win over BYU, ending BYU's bid for a perfect season. BYU almost lost last week. We talked about this. Utah probably should have won that game. Some things with the refs, according to Utah's coach. But BYU going in with one loss. They could be playing Colorado. That's the favorite right now. Colorado did go out yesterday, and they did beat Utah. So it could be and the reason I bring this up is because there's only going to be one team that's going to make the college football playoffs out of the Big 12. It's either going to be BYU or it's going to be Colorado. So can Deion Sanders, that's a big thing if he can get that club into the playoffs. Georgia. Go ahead, bud.
I'm rooting against Colorado. I don't. It's nothing against them kids, man, but he has turned that program into a bunch of arrogant. These kids think they're going to determine how things are going to play out in the NFL. They think that, this shit's unbelievable. Like the things that are coming out of Colorado. So, I hate to say it because you're rooting against kids and every kid deserves the best shot, but I am pulling for somebody to thump Colorado's ass and knock them down like to where they're completely out of the playoff rankings. Like not the rankings, but the playoff. Yeah. I don't want to see them in it, man.
Well, here was a big one. Georgia, a little upset after dropping to 12 of the polls after losing last week. They come back and beat number 7 Tennessee 31-17. I love it because all these SEC teams, all they're doing is just hurting each other. They're coming in, pounding each other, hurting their records. And it's my opinion.
Yeah, that could possibly open the door for more Big Ten schools, things like
I've
that.
said from the beginning, there's only going to be 4 Big Ten schools, but all 4 of them are getting in. IU, Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State. I believe that all 4 of those schools will make the playoff. But the SECs, because between all 4 of those schools, Ohio State might have 2 losses. If they lose to Indiana this week, you know what I'm saying, that'd be their second loss. But I still believe that they would get in, considering that their only 2 losses was to number 1 and a number 5 ranked team. Why wouldn't they get in to the playoffs? But every other Big Ten team would finish with at least 1 loss or no losses in Oregon's place. But Georgia's going to move back up in the polls this week and in the playoff poll. But I don't believe that any SEC team will make it with 3 losses into the playoffs.
I hate it, man, because it's like it's almost like they don't want to allow these SEC teams to fall, man. Like Georgia and Alabama and LSU, they're not the dominant powerhouses that they once were. And it's like, even when they take L's, man, they want to just like make them drop like a couple positions. But then when somebody like if Indiana were to take a loss, they would drop them like 10 spots. You know what I mean? Like they just feel like sometimes it feels like they overload these power rankings way too much, man.
I agree. The last one was I want to talk about was Notre Dame, number 8 in the polls. They picked up a 35-14 win over Virginia. Notre Dame is they got 2 games left, and this last one's going to help them because they play Army next week, and Army is undefeated at 9-0 right now. So that'll be another feather in Notre Dame's cap to help push them into the playoffs. As long as they win their last 2 games, they're going to finish.
The thing that hurts the thing that hurts Notre Dame is because they don't belong to a conference. They don't have a championship game, and so the playoff committee is going to look at it like, some of these teams are beating top tier teams in the championship games, and so they're going to seed them differently. You know, the rankings may change right before the seedings,
No, because
and Notre Dame may.
They already have that built in, bud. Four of the conference, the big four conferences, they get they'll get an automatic bid with the conference championship.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand they get an automatic bid, but how does the seeding fall in the actual playoff? Like, how do you determine who's the number 1 team in the playoff versus the number 12 team? You know what I mean?
Well, the top 4 teams will be the 4 conference winners from the Big 4, and then the 5th biggest conference, which is the Mountain West, will get an automatic bid into it. They just don't get a bye. So 5 spots are taken by the 5 conference winners.
So okay, I see what you're saying. So if if Notre Dame was to be the number 1 team in the country going into the playoffs, they wouldn't get the number 1 seed because they're not.
Nope.
Because they're not a conference champion.
That's right.
I got you. Okay, I didn't know that. As much as I like college football and shit, when it comes to the breakdown of all this new shit that they're adding, I really haven't kept up, honestly. So
yeah. No, so Notre Dame, as long as they win out their last 2 games, they're making the postseason, because I understand the argument that you were making, but the committee is already ranking them in the top 12. So, and right now in the top 4 out of the teams, out of the top 5 spots, 4 of the top teams are from the Big Ten. Well, 2 of those teams are going to play each other in the Big Ten championship. One's gonna drop down, but the way that it goes, 1 through 4 is determined by the conference championships. So 5 through 12 will be determined by the other teams that make it into it. Those guys will play, and then you know what I'm saying. The other 4 teams get a bye. So I should have seen if they had a thing up here to pull up on the screen for the playoffs. That's what I wanted, which basically like a
I think the first college football playoff rankings or something. I don't know. They were saying something like was going to drop. Is it tonight? I think.
No, it's already dropped. It's already dropped, but they're already 2 weeks in.
Okay, all right.
That's what this is right here on the screen. The college football rankings for the college football playoff rankings. That's the first one. Then you have the AP top 25. So as you see right there on the screen, bud, you got Oregon, and the new one comes out on Tuesday. They drop on Tuesday. So the games that they just played, this is from this past Tuesday, but they have Oregon number 1, Ohio State number 2, Texas SEC team number 3, and then Penn State and IU. As you see, and BYU was number 6. They're going to drop. And one of the things is Georgia was 12th, but Georgia would have lost that spot out to Boise State, who's sitting at 13th, because Boise State right now is leading the Mountain West. So if Boise State wins the Mountain West, they would move in. Georgia would actually be the odd man out and would not make the playoffs.
Okay,
so
I got you.
It's eating up, man. It's getting close to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. I spend a lot of time. I'll go through and I'll look at the standings in the conferences to find out like who's the top teams. You know what I'm saying? Like who's going to play each other in the standings. And that's something that I'm bringing up now when you see it. Like the Big 12 right here, you got BYU, who is 6-1 in the conference and 9-1 overall. Then you have Colorado, 6-1 in the conference, 8-2 overall. It looks like those 2 teams, they went out. They're going to be playing for the Big 12 championship. And so I've done that with the SEC. And what I love about the SEC is that the SEC are pounding on each other and just giving each other loss after loss after loss. And there's no way that a committee is going to put a 3-loss SEC school in it. So, and as you look at pulled up right here.
You say that, but I mean, like I said, man, they hold the SEC to a different, like they hold them up on a higher level than even the Big Ten, man. It's like they get more respect than the Big Ten.
Yep. Well, when you look at the SEC right now, you see Texas and Texas A&M. Those are the two top teams in the conference right now, but they play each other the last game of the season, not even in the championship. So one of those teams is going to take a loss. It just determines, is Georgia going to lose before then? Will Tennessee drop another game before then? You got several teams right there that got two losses in the conference. So you always love some college football this time of the year, and I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it, and I can't wait to see IU and Ohio State next week, man. That's going to be huge.
Hell yeah!
But
damn.
Anything else you want to
Man,
add?
I hate having fat ass fingers. I said I hate having fat ass fingers. I tried to type a message in the chat, just asking everybody to subscribe, and my fat ass fingers are hitting fucking letters and shit that I didn't mean
I see that. I'm like, he's like ton. It means the quarrel to us.
Yeah.
It's like me reading.
Yeah, it's like Phil trying to pronounce a name, you know what I mean?
Especially them Russian
but
names.
but no, man, we're almost an hour in, man. Yeah, college football, like you said, it's definitely heating up, man. We're gonna have damn it.
All right, man. We lost Dustin there. He was he's going nuts with his fat fingers typing in. So we'll go ahead and end this. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back this week covering the NFL action from today. And jet up, bear down. Delo's added back in real quick.
Yeah, my bad, guys. But like I said, we're gonna have a good college football playoff. Of course, us Hoosiers, we're all hoping for IU to make a deep push in the playoffs. We're very proud of them for even being in contention at this point. But other than that, man, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm deep down, I've always been a Penn State fan, and they're playing good ball as well. So they could be right there in the end as well, man. So we'll see how it all plays out. But ready for some football, NFL football today, man.
All right, man. We'll go ahead and end it, guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and we appreciate y'all turning in. We'll be back this week with the reviews of the NFL games and a little jet up, bear down football, and have a good Sunday. Enjoy it, man.
Yeah, we'll catch y'all next time.
See ya.